Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We're really excited today to be here to talk about on friendship and just to podcast together. We're going to talk about some of the crazy things going on. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Alysa Lucas is here.
Hello.
Yes. So before we got into our movie that we're going to be talking about, I'd actually had something. We're recording this on Thursday, the 12th, and I'm going to post this tomorrow on the 13th. And I wanted to just talk to our listeners a little bit about all this craziness that is happening and with this virus and you know, we're all friends, so it's probably appropriate that we're talking about this in an on friendship episode. And
absolutely,
you know, it has been overwhelming, especially today. Just one thing after another thing. We just got the notice. I just found out that all activities of my church are all canceled, and across the globe. And I mean, just, oh my gosh, they're closing down Disneyland. Like, it's just, wow.
Well, and for folks like me, you know, who already had changed her profile pic on Facebook to her favorite basketball player,
oh my gosh,
from Michigan State, and now March Madness, you know, they're Big Ten, the MAC, all those, like the conferences, those tournaments have been canceled, and March Madness and the NBA and all that. And, you know, one of the things that it's just a lot of information to process, because on Tuesday I was going to be going to the MAC tournament and decided to stay home because I was tired. And then how much changed in the time that it took the people I was going to go with to get to Cleveland from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, how much had changed. And I just feel like I couldn't do anything on Wednesday. I felt like there was just so much information coming in and there's a lot to process. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is that a lot of the things that we spend our time outside of work and family doing is canceled. And for good reason. We don't want to spread the virus. We don't want it to be what's going on in Italy, where was it like 200 people passed in one day. And so I think flattening that curve of spread is a good thing, but I think that for each of us, we are coping and managing in our own ways. And I think that when we start to see the things that we enjoy, like church or sports or movies or any of the Disney, it doesn't seem like there's much else. And that's when I would say, this is the time in which to focus on connection, because we all need it. Even though we're going to be isolated, I'm just so glad that we live in a time that I can see you right now while we're recording this, right?
I know.
Right? Like, and that, you know, that this is a time that we can connect with others in a myriad of ways, right? This might be the time, if you hate phones, to pick up the phone because you're not having the typical human interaction. You know, it might be a FaceTime, it might be a chat date on Google Hangout, it might be, hey, let's do a book club together, just you and I, we read a book and talk about it, you know. And that's the thing. I just think even with everything going on, what's going to help us through this time is still being connected, even though we might be apart. Like, I live alone, and I luckily have 3 pets, so it's like having living things with me. But when I start to feel like isolated or lonely, that's when I need to be sure to reach out to people. And we should reach out to others too, and being sure that all our people are okay.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it really hasn't changed my life all that much as far as like the nuts and bolts of my life, because I work from home. I have this hermit life, I say. And I mean, and luckily we won't be changing the Hallmarkies podcast very much, because we are a homegrown organization. We do everything from home. And so if there's any comfort that you can find in that, then please do, because, you know, we do it all. We don't have a studio. So we have some really fun stuff, hopefully, that we can provide some joy, you know, with all the stress for you. But so the nuts and bolts, but obviously, like, it's very upsetting and overwhelming to have the whole framework of our society is just under hold, and and it's shocking, it's upsetting, it's scary, and I think you're absolutely right. Like you have to kind of just lean on those human connections that you have, and even amongst our co-hosts, we have people that are affected by the virus itself, and so we're praying, we're worried, we're banding together, and I think there's strength in that. There's strength in those prayers. There's strength in those, in that community spirit that we know we can have if when something like this happens.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you mentioned is like Hallmarkies isn't going away, because as of right now, we are both in our homes recording this episode. And so one of the things that, besides maybe creating some new and fun ways in which to connect with people, so there's something to look forward to, or that we can be sure everyone is okay and that we're thinking of them, and all those sorts of things, but also to know that there is something constant and consistent and reliable in one's life. A podcast can do that, right?
Yeah.
A Netflix binge might do that. And that's where we need to find some of that peace and love and connection, is any way we can. If reading books, listening to podcasts, watching TV, if those things help you connect with just human life, then do it. But absolutely think of some other ways in which you can band together using technology.
That's right. And just check in with people that are that are in your life. Just check in with them, make sure they're, because even if they might seem strong, they may be pretty unglued by the whole situation. And so, because it's just upsetting.
Yeah, yesterday I couldn't do anything. There's just so much information coming in, and just like, so I'm a college professor, and although I don't have the same lifestyle or work style that you have, Rachel, I do a lot of work from home, right? I do a lot of things here, and then I teach and have office hours and meetings on campus, but there is still something about completely changing in a face-to-face class to an online class, and then not being able to interact with my students face to face. And so I was like, I read half a book, and that helped take my mind off things. But this is it might be like this for several weeks. So you got to find a way to stay connected.
Yeah. Buckle up. It's gonna be crazy.
And here's the thing though. How many movies of Hallmark do you have at your fingertips? And how many episodes of Hallmarkies do you have at your fingertips?
That's right.
Maybe you could do like the Hallmark challenge. Like, okay, during this isolation, I'm going to watch 10 Hallmark movies I've never seen before.
Yeah, there you go.
And then see if you can find the corresponding episode from the Hallmarkies.
I mean, we do have, we've just crossed, this week, we crossed the 400 episode mark.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
So you can find a episode that on every single movie or television episode that has been on Hallmark Channel since 2017.
Wow.
So since fall.
See, this might be the chance. Here's the other thing. If you think about it positively, or trying to find the silver lining, like as long as you're doing your best for yourself and your people and looking out for people. But it also might be like, when I'm at home, what can I do for myself that's going to make me feel better? Or is there something new to learn? Or is it like, I've always wanted to watch this Hallmark TV show and I haven't had a chance. Here's my chance to do it. And if that makes you feel good, then do it.
That's right. And one of the things I've always tried to do here at the podcast is to create a community.
And absolutely.
Just with our co-hosts, because we really are close. And also with there's so many different guests that we've had, with you, of course, with people like Greg McBride, or we just had the Sanderson sisters on. They're so great. We had Hunks of Hallmark Girls, so great. People that we've had on a bunch of times that really do feel like family. Dory and Mel and all the feels, all these people, and so please keep us informed of kind of how you're doing, what you're watching, how you're coping, all that stuff. We want to hear from you. We really feel closeness to you, whether it's our friends on Twitter. Anne Riddle is so great. We have so many wonderful commenters. Nadia is so great. There's so many. And so we want to hear from you. We want to support you in any way we can. And so, we're just really excited for whatever we can do to help you and help ourselves to get through this stressful, crazy,
it's unprecedented
experience.
So it's like it takes all of us. Like, we have to be good neighbors, good friends, and just pull together, because this is something that no one really has experienced before, at least in this time, right?
Nothing nothing. I mean, Disneyland has not closed since 9/11. So
the men's basketball tournament has never been canceled. They even played in World War II. So this is unprecedented times, but that doesn't mean we can't band together and make it through. So let's do it.
All right. Well, all that said, let's just have a little bit of fun, release a little bit of stress. Deep breath. And we're going to talk about the movie, The Wish List.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes. So, this is old-timey Hallmark. You're going
2010, right?
2010. Yes. Yes. So this is the Stone Age. We're going way back to 2010. And this movie, it stars Jennifer Esposito, David Sutcliffe, and Richard Portnow. And the little summary is, after several nasty dating surprises, instantaneous HR executive Sarah compiles a complete list of the potential partner requirements. After handsome pediatrician and perfect gentleman Eric meets all criteria and charms her family, wedding plans are soon in the making, yet one impish voice nags at her, that of LA barista Fred, who swears by surprising his customers and usually succeeds. Fred's reproach of her drawing shows talent but no ambition, inspires her to try a fresh style, and she enters him for a national competition, while Eric smoothly keeps doing everything too right. So there's a summary. So what were your overall thoughts about this movie? Overall. Was it your favorite?
Okay. The first few minutes, I was like, where is the barista from? Where's the barista from? I was like, he's so familiar. Has he been in other Hallmark movies? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's the dad from Gilmore Girls, right. Christopher. So I was like, okay. And I like Jennifer Esposito. So I was like, okay, let's go. But the relationship person in me that teaches those classes was like, you did what with the list now? Not only did she make it on a dry erase board, she typed it up and put it in her purse where she takes it out in public. And I was like, I like the idea of the movie because I think there's a lesson learned, and that is we need to be careful with the lists that we make.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I feel like I overall, if you don't,
I enjoyed it
overall. I think this is a fun enough movie. But and I remembered it maybe a little more fondly than it deserved. But watching it within these eyes, that's what's always interesting about doing this show is I was like, ooh, this movie is problematic.
Oh yeah, there's lots of things.
But if you're just looking for kind of a disposable rom-com, it's perfectly serviceable. But I had some, it's going to be very, I think, interesting to talk about because there's a lot of ideas, I think, in here that on the surface sound really great, but if you really think about them in a relationship, it's a problem.
It's not going to work.
I mean, did you ever have that thing when you were growing up where you're just like make a list of the things that you want in a potential spouse? Did you ever do anything like that?
Yeah, it was probably something like Joey McIntyre.
Right.
River Phoenix. It probably was like all the qualities. Christian Slater, all the crushes I had growing up. But I have to say that I do an activity in a class where I ask my students, what are the qualities that you look for in a partner? And then we try to, as a class, finalize the top 10, right? And so it's the class is sort of like people discussing and arguing, like, why would you want that in a partner? How could you have a partner that wasn't respectful? And it's really sort of getting at what's important in relationships. And then we look at what's problematic about what we want in the relationship. So what's on the list? So, you know, if you want someone who's committed, what might be the problem with is like overcommitment, you know, something like that. So I would say though, from probably when I was younger until the last time I taught that class in fall, the one quality that I look for and that I would like to have, but I think it shouldn't be a must, as she did in the movie. It should be a preference. And that is sense of humor, because I think when stuff like the coronavirus happens or the toilet gets backed up and you have to clean stuff, or he has explosive diarrhea, you need someone that you can laugh with, because if you're not laughing, you're crying. I kind of feel like laughing through things makes it easier to cope with things.
Well, so and the nice thing about the nice thing about sense of humor though is that it's like so subjective. So like,
absolutely.
You know, what you might think that the guy I end up with is a stiff and really boring, but like he makes like, I'm cracking up. Serious. You know, I'm cracking up. And so that's what's nice thing about that. So that's like a very, as opposed to something like he has to have a particular job or something like that. That's so a sense of humor is
body type.
Or a sense of humor is way more malleable.
Yes, exactly. And you're right. Like it's much more subjective, and all those qualities are, even when someone says they have to be attractive, and that's one that we kind of argue about in the class together. But one of the things we talk about is not so much they have to be objectively or what society says attractive, but we have to be attracted to our partner. But it's like, but what might be the problem if that is an absolute must, is that they must be good looking? Well, then there's going to be some downside to that, because here's the thing. We all age, we all, you know, like there's lots of things that can make it difficult to maintain. And I think that's the problem with the list. It's impossible for any one person to hit all the marks, and then the expectations for them to constantly and consistently do it. What you're doing is sort of preparing yourself for failure in a way, right?
Well, I mean, they definitely, me growing up, it's particularly at church, they would have us occasionally make these lists, and the idea is like things like in our church, you know, that you want to marry a returned missionary, or you want to, and I think the point of that kind of exercise is to say you want somebody who will support you in your faith, who will support you in your beliefs. And so I understand. And I also, I'm reminded of an experience a couple of years ago where I'd been on a few dates with a guy, and I was like, I don't know, this guy is too much of a mama's boy for my taste. Like, I don't know. Like,
as I'm cracking up over here.
And I'm also not like a small town person. Like, I want to live in a suburb or a city. Like, I need to be close to things. I need to, and like, I mean, I was thinking this, I don't know if this would ever work, because he is just so tied to this tiny small town in Wyoming, and he has his like too tied to his mother, and that's just not me. And my friend,
and if he's listening right now, hope you're doing well, buddy.
Sorry. But my friend, who also knew him, said, "Oh, I threw out my list of must-haves long ago."
Yeah.
It's as if I was saying, well, you know, because I don't want to marry mama's boy, and I don't want to marry, not that we were even close to that, but nevertheless, the discussion. And I don't want to live in a small town. So like, I think that you have to still kind of know what you want out of a human, like what makes you happy as a person. And I'm almost 40. I've learned over the course of my life what things make for happy Rachel and what things don't. and so I'm not, to me, it's like, it's, yes, of course, as a couple, you become a new unit that has to give and take and but you still are you, and you have to know what you want out of life. Like, there has to be sort of both things happening. Like, you have to sort of have your autonomy and know what you want, and you have to also have your couple autonomy and make it all work. And that's what's hard about a relationship. That's what's hard about marriage. But I don't know. So that, in that sense, I think the list is actually important. Like, it doesn't do any good to just pretend like, well, I'll just, whoever's there, I'm going to marry them because they asked me and I'm 40, you know, like, okay, let's do it.
It makes me think about a couple things. Now, if there's anyone who's watched this past season of The Bachelor, which ended on Tuesday, one of the final 2 girls is very much faith-based, and they saw a lot of differences, and she ended up leaving the show. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. And then they kind of are talking again now, and he ended his engagement to the other girl. And so something like that, I think faith is extremely important for people. And I think there are some things that we might call deal breakers. And a deal breaker might be for someone who is deep into their faith, someone who does not have the same level of faith. I think that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
But I do think that, so it is important to be like, this is what I want, or this is what, these are sort of the boundaries or expectations I want in the relationship. This is the kind of person I want to be with. But I don't know if going into like a date and it's like doing an interview and you're like, check. And it's like, no, that's too hard. No one, it's impossible to be met. And so I think there are some deal breakers. Like, I mean, some people might say, Alysa, I don't think that you're going to probably want to marry someone who, A, doesn't like cats. I mean, I got 2 sweet baby furry angels that obviously come first. And 2, someone who doesn't like television. But the thing about it is, the cats would probably be more important to me. And then second, with the TV, as long as they're like, hey, watch whatever TV you want, it's probably not a deal breaker. And I think what it comes down to is, as you get to know someone, you start to understand what things might be passable, or like, I don't care about that, or that doesn't make a difference to me. If they're really into baseball, okay, fine. Like, I'm not, but I'll go to games with you because I like it, but I'm not going to watch it with you on television. Do that with your friends, or do that with the dog.
And also, like, if you're aware of kind of who you are as a person, and you decide that I'm going to make that sacrifice for that relationship, I'm going to move to a small town because of this relationship, then you know that's what you're doing. And you can kind of be aware of that. And not that you hold it over their heads, because that's not effective, but like, it doesn't do any good to just pretend like, well, I'm in love, so it's going to be fine.
Well, I think there's some real major deal breakers. I think religion, whether or not people want to have children. I think style of life, like if you want to be city-based and someone else is like, I want to be on a farm, that's probably not going to work. But if you found someone where you're like, can we live in the city in the summer and the farm rusty? Or, you know, so I think the idea is the list is fine. But again, I don't think it needs to be printed off and in your purse where it can fall out of your purse and other people can find it. That's a problem. Number 2, I think it's a problem that she doesn't assume the men might have a list, like all of her qualities are top notch. Like, calm down, Sarah.
That's a good point.
Sarah was like, Sarah, you're rigid and anal, and there are qualities there that other people might not like. And so we have to realize that we are imperfect. The people that we love are imperfect, and we have to be flexible. But that doesn't mean allowing ourselves to be walked over or to experience negative, like toxic things. It's just, I think what you mentioned is really important, is that's knowing yourself. And if you're not sure, I think starting with a list would be great. What kind of things do I like? What did I enjoy about past relationships? What don't I like about in the past relationships, which made them in the past?
That's kind of the
from movies, but what do I know is not realistic from movies, you know?
Right.
And like, reflecting is fine. Again, let's not print it out.
That's kind of
that's my one rule for today. Don't print out.
That's kind of the Runaway Bride situation, where she's been having these in that movie, she's been having all of these different relationships, and she kind of just conforms to whatever that relationship needs. And so finally in the movie, she's like, you have to decide what your favorite kinds of eggs are. And she tries all the different kinds of eggs, and she decides, this is it. This is my favorite. Because she's just been kind of agreeing with whatever eggs her partner liked. And so yeah, I think that's true. I also, though, we'll
like
talk
your
about it
own
more.
eggs, people figure out what you like.
Yeah, that's right. I have a big,
I love an omelet, so that's what I'm going with.
on the flip side, we'll talk about this more, but I have major issues with Mr. Barista, though, too. So I don't think
like either one of them. Okay, like I have beef with all three people.
So I think his lifestyle is very problematic to me also. So, but anyway, so it starts out the movie with her as a kid just making all of these lists, and it's something she continues on as
just
an adult.
For Prince Charming, which can be a red flag. If you want to talk about more, we can talk about it.
Yes. But she's just a very particular person. She knows what she likes, and she knows she wants to go to the dry cleaners, and she's everything.
Very organized.
Yeah, and I did think that was kind of funny that everyone in the dry cleaners is like huddled behind the door, like, don't call on me, I don't want to help her, she's too hard.
She's like Meg Ryan from When Harry Met Sally. I like pie with ice cream, but if it can't be cold, I don't want the ice cream on this. All that's what she's like with her dry cleaning.
Yeah, that's right. And so and there's also the scene where she's been dating this guy, and she finds out that he's been hiding the fact that he's a smoker.
And
yeah, just the smell alone, you really couldn't hide it. But that's something so different than 2010. I mean, you could not smoke in an open cafe now.
But also, I went to some bars and stuff when I was in college, and I would take my coat in the winter, and then I could never wear said coat again. So it stays with you.
No, it does. And people that smoke cigarettes, they think because they're just used to it, they're acclimated to it.
Yeah.
But man, now, because I worked with tons of smokers on my mission, and even now, like if I'm behind somebody at the bank, it can be almost overwhelming. They just was so strong. And anyway, so that was a little far-fetched, but the idea is that everybody's been holding all of these bad traits back from her because she will judge them. And the one thing I think about her list is that some of the things seem like they actually matter, and then other stuff, it's like it doesn't matter. Like, for instance, it is actually really important that you are with somebody who values family, if that's something that you value. Absolutely. Not necessarily having kids, but like if Mr. Barista has like no relationship with his parents, that's concerning to me. And especially if I'm somebody who does a lot with my parents and has these, regular activities, regular events, like that to me shows that could be problematic, I feel like.
Well, but it also could be, but it's also like how people handle that. Is it like, I don't want anything to do with any families, or is it like, my family isn't around, but I can't wait to build my own? Again, you won't know that until you get to know them and talk to them, or you can't just judge that on like a first date.
Yeah.
Where your parents. Well,
whereas like like that's a character thing, like, or it certainly can be. It would definitely be something I would want to find out more about. What's the background there? Why does he have a relationship with his parents? And but like, does he know how to cook? Like, we can work around that. Like,
I was like, fine. I don't know how to cook. Let's not cook together. Woo!
Like that's not a character, like it's a character trait, but it's not a character like being honorable or having integrity, or like cooking is not in that.
They can learn together. That's the thing, is it something that can be changed together? And it's not changed. Is it something like you want to do together, build together, or is it something that's like...
And here's the thing about cooking, by the way. All you have to do to be a quote-unquote good cook, learn how to make 7 recipes.
7 recipes, okay.
Recipes. You got a week, you're good. Like, that's the foundation. You're good.
I thought there's gonna be like 7 specific. No. Like, you need to have 7, a dessert.
I mean, if you're a meat eater and you learn how to roast a chicken and you learn how to make marinara sauce, you will be able to make tons of recipes. Tons and tons and tons and tons of things that you can use roast chicken with and that you can use red sauce with. The list goes on and on. And so that's what I would suggest. Learn how to make. But seriously, if you have, because people think, oh, I don't know how to cook. Like, just set it, even 5 days, 5 meals.
Because there's probably you've got a week leftovers.
Yeah, that's right. You got a week, and it's especially good if you pick recipes that like are easy to make variations on. For instance, if you learn how to make burgers, you can like make a Mexi burger, you can make an Italian burger, you can put whatever toppings that you want on it.
Here's a suggestion: if as you're isolated over the next couple of weeks, what you could do is figure out what your 7 recipes are.
Yes, let us know your 7 recipes. But people make it way too complicated that they got to know how to make all this stuff. You really don't.
Yeah. I'll see if I can't work on my 7 recipes to share.
But anyway, like just some of these things on these lists, like it's absolutely essential that you're with somebody who's honest. That's an important thing on the list. But then other stuff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like the thing was like no dreadlocks, and I was like,
like eating red meat is not a character trait. Like it's not a value trait. It's
for some people it might be connected to like animal rights or something that. But I mean, but again, it's you have to dig deeper than just what people put on a profile online or what people say in the first conversation. If you click and you seem to have a good time, it's always like learn more. And then if you learn something that is not going to work for you, then move on, but also be ready because there might be something about you that might not be the seal of the deal. Like, you know what I mean?
So
that's the hard part of dating.
Yeah, I know. So she breaks up with this guy and she says, I'm tired of leaving everything up to chance. I'm going to try to take some control. And I really do respond to that because it is frustrating about dating because you want to be able to set some kind of calendar, some way to kind of control it. But it's just, you're dealing with another human being's agency. So you can't control it. Like
we can only control ourselves and our reactions to things.
That's exactly right. And so I can't say, okay, next June, I got it on the calendar. I'm going to get married. That's going to happen. No. You just can't because another human being is involved in the situation.
Yeah.
So that's what's so frustrating about dating.
Yeah.
For sure. And so anyway, but she decides that she is going to make this non-negotiable list of traits that she's going to go on these dates, and if they don't fit these categories, then that is it. They're out of the running. Including he must cry it. So I have the whole list here.
He had to cry at movies.
Yeah.
I wrote down, no, they don't. People respond and use and express their emotions differently. I'm if you want to cry at movies, that's fine. Are you trying to say you like someone's a little bit more sensitive or connected to emotion? That doesn't mean they have to cry though. There's other ways to express emotion.
Like I can understand saying he has to be sympathetic of me crying at the movies and not be a jerk about it.
She's not concerned about what her qualities are, and that's
that's true.
His problem with Sarah.
So her list is must love family, must have a good job, must love animals, have no bling, not eat red meat, no piercings, no dreadlocks, no slogan t-shirts. I'd be out of the running already.
I'm wearing one now. Women supporting women. I'm out.
We're out. And I'm wearing Hallmarkies podcast t-shirt. So I'm out. Honest, kind, athletic, must be able to cook, must cry at movies, must be a safe driver, no smoking, 1 drink limit per night.
Okay.
And must have nice feet. So that would be another out for me. Nice.
Some of those things are important. Kindness, honesty. Some of these other things in the long run do not matter, or they're not going to have some huge bearing on the relationship. And essentially what she might be doing with a list like this is eliminating people that she could have had a really great relationship with. And so she's boxing herself in. Or so what are the odds? And I think this is where we're going next. Yeah. What are the odds that she would meet Eric?
Right. Yeah. I mean, not high. Not high. And So anyway, so there we go. And she is assistant children's book editor. So she, like we said, she has this list of everything that she wants at the dry cleaner, everything she wants in her life. And she has a particular drink that she always gets when she goes to get coffee. She gets a large non-fat half calf latte with extra shot of calf.
Okay, Meg Ryan.
I don't drink coffee.
I drink tea.
And so I have no idea. I mean, so I guess this is, I mean, isn't a latte, isn't that like a kind of a creamier drink?
Yeah, I believe so.
So you have a creamier drink with a half non-fat half calf. So it's basically just a non-fat creamy drink with with a full shot of a shot and a half of caffeine.
We might need a coffee drinker to translate for us,
because it's a half calf and then an extra shot, so it's a 1.5 calf, I guess, drink.
It sounds like something super fancy, and yes. The guy that works at the coffee shop.
Well, for a while he knows his thing, and then he goes away. David Sutcliffe is the new manager. He thinks he knows what, he's the coffee psychic. He knows what everybody wants. He plays his harmonica, and he says, "You drink what I recommend."
Nope, I'm out.
Here's the thing about, like, I do like the idea of him encouraging her to take more risk. That is
absolutely.
That's a good thing. But he crosses the line way too many times of speaking for her and making her choices for her. And she has every right to have her laundry and her coffee the way that she wants it. She is an adult. She doesn't she, like, you can encourage, you can even strongly encourage, but he was definitely too many times, I felt like, removing her agency from her. And that might be charming as you're dating, because, like, oh, spontaneous guy, whatever, but that does not work in a relationship, I don't think, at all.
Like, well, to begin with, he's new in this coffee shop, and so, like, it completely changes its style from one day to the next. And, like, I thought the same thing. I think it's kind of rude, and there are some places where that's their shtick, like they're mean to their customers, or like, if you don't know how to pronounce things at this restaurant that I used to go to in State College, Pennsylvania, they make fun of you. So I would always, like, practice and, like, I'm getting spatzel. I'm getting because it's a Hungarian. I'm like, spatzel. Like, I'm just practicing it over and over again. So if you're going into it, it's different. But I feel like if that was going to really work for his business, it should be something like, let people get what they want, or do they want to take his surprise drink, right? Which he's really good at making drinks, right? But the thing about it is, I agree with you. I didn't like either guy. So what we have here is you have Fred behind the counter as the barista who takes away any choice that she has. Then she meets Eric at the coffee shop, and later I think he talks for her too. And what she ends up is she has two men who are making all her decisions for her. But at the beginning of the movie, they're playing all this music, like, about her being an independent woman, but it wasn't Destiny's Child. It was another independent woman themed song. And it was just like, yeah. And then it was like, these guys come in and are just telling her everything. And I was like, ugh.
At least I feel like Eric is more willing to sort of try things. Like he was out there dancing. He was, like, trying to, I felt like he was more willing to sort of try to make her happy and to do things that he thought she would like than Fred is ever able to. That's his name, right? Fred?
Yep.
Anyway, David Sutcliffe, that he was ever able to kind of see things from her point of view, or try to. I felt like definitely, if it was me, I would definitely pick Eric over Mr. Barista.
In the beginning stages, absolutely, because the barista, Fred, is rude.
Yeah.
And why does he seem to think that he knows anything about people? And it's like, why don't you create some cool drinks and people can try them? Why do you have to force it upon someone?
Yeah. And she says,
if it's like, what if they have allergies? What if they have like there's so many reasons why someone would want the drink that they want, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I go in there for a tea and it's like, no, you want a coffee. No, I do not. I don't want the beans.
And it, like, it would be fine maybe like once or maybe twice, just sort of
every single time.
But he, I don't know, he just takes it too far.
Yeah.
And she deserves to have life the way that she wants it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So that's where, and like, you cannot have a relationship where one person is making all the choices for another person.
Well,
like, that
but
is not going to work.
They were strangers though too. So I think, you know, she was looking for someone, and he obviously was not going to mark off any of the things on her list.
Yeah.
And so when she runs into Eric in that same coffee shop, and they end up talking for 3 hours and they click really well, but he still seems rude. And so you think that she's going to find this perfect guy who checks all the boxes, but that ends up being a problem too.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. They are the good folks over at Care Of, and they have been such great sponsors for our podcast. They provide vitamins for you that you can get online. And one of the great things that you can do with Care Of is you can go on and take their quiz, where you can go through and try to figure out kind of where your needs are and what your health needs are, and what kind of vitamins would be the best for you, because we don't want to just be taking things that we don't need. And so it helps you with your health goals. And, you know, we're all trying right now, especially, to be as healthy as possible. And,
absolutely.
This is a really good thing. And they also have protein powders that are made with real ingredients that you can recognize, like organic cocoa and pink Himalayan sea salt. And you had a chance to take the quiz, I think, right?
I did. And what I liked about it is that it didn't take very long.
Right.
And so it was probably one of those things that I did while I was watching doing one of my TV binges. and because I sit a lot, I do need to think about my health. And so that was a nice way to figure out what would work best for how I live my life and what goals I have for myself. But it was also really easy to do and get it ordered and sent directly to me.
Right. And the vitamin aisle can be just overwhelming. There's so many different kinds. They all look the same. You don't know what you need. And so that's why the quiz can be so helpful. And they put in these little packets. So it's really, there's a great attention to detail. It makes it easy to put in your suitcase, put in your purse, and be ready to go and be your healthiest self. So for 50% off your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com, enter code Hallmarkies50. That's 50% off your first Care Of order. Go to takecareof.com, enter code Hallmarkies50.
50%.
Yeah. Wow. Eric ends up meeting the family, and they all love him, think he's a great guy. He ends up saving the day. Her father gets on fire, and he makes the pasta on the fly and saves the day. Everybody's favorite. He even has a great dog. So it's going to go a long way. And but then you get a little bit of Fred being the good guy, because he remembers her birthday and throws this little party in the coffee shop for her.
I thought that was strange. To be perfectly honest, I was like, why are you putting up balloons and singing happy birthday and bringing me down here? I don't know you.
Well, and it made me laugh that when he's like, we wish you a happy birthday. I'm like, oh, good on Hallmark. They don't want to pay for happy birthday because it's just recently become public domain for a long time. Yeah, for a long time, if you had happy birthday in any movie, you would see it in the song list, and you had to pay royalties to use happy birthday. So that made me laugh.
Happy birthday. And how much money have they made in their lifetime?
Yeah,
and their
bank.
Yeah, and their ancestors are set.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, and so then she goes out dancing with Fred, and she has the zombie drink, and and he says that he tries to indulge in one simple pleasure every day. And that's when we find out also that he eats burgers. He doesn't have a relationship with his hippie parents. But he's fresh and exciting, and so that's sort of the appeal. And at one point she does say to him, when is risk taking a good thing, and when should we be allowed to have what we want in life? And I think it's true, but he thinks it's a great thing. And so then she tells him about her illustrating, and he encourages her and is kind of rude about her drawings, that they didn't look that boring to me. What do I know about art?
I wrote it down. She's safe like her drawings, and she's unwilling to take risks.
And so then she is kind of inspired, and there's a woman who comes in with dreadlocks, and she takes the chance on her and hires her. Aww. And so she's starting to kind of change, be less judgmental, and she has more than one of these zombie drinks. So I guess and they go karaoke.
She's breaking her own rules.
I did die laughing when the big karaoke song that they're singing is "When the Saints Go Marching In." What karaoke bar is this? Like, what?
One in which Hallmark has to pay for, Rachel.
That made me laugh.
Yeah, I was like, man, they must have had way too many zombie drinks if that's the song they're picking.
I know. That's really tearing up a bar. I don't drink alcohol, but I doubt that's a big player on the karaoke scene. It made me laugh. We find out that Fred has a tattoo, and he kind of forces her to eat red meat, or pressures her. And she does, going home, she falls asleep on his shoulder. And so she's getting pretty excited. And then Eric is off in the jungle, and she's watching his dog.
Doctor who was called out to Ecuador.
Yeah, exactly. And she finds out about this barista competition, which is a real thing. I looked it up.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. And she gives her art to her boss, and then through the course of the movie, there's the Sumatra sling, there's like 4 or 5 other drinks that he makes for her through the course of the film. And so Eric gets home, she takes Eric to the club, and this is where I thought, well, first of all, I had to laugh. Did you like how they went into that like split screen?
Yeah, I was like, the dance off was magnificent.
And you see there's like 10 or 11 different little boxes, you're seeing him dance. Like, what is this, John Travolta?
Yeah. They were really feeling the staying alive.
That 2010 Hallmark, they really went for it with that with the production, visual design, visual effects. I don't know, it made me laugh. But I did appreciate that, like I said, that Eric, he tried. I think that he would be if we're saying who would be the most successful partner of the two, I think that Eric would be the much more successful partner, because he seemed way more open to kind of to being a partner. The only time when he doesn't is what we're going to talk about with the wedding, where all of a sudden he becomes this crazy person. And but
because he was like, he went out there like he can't dance, but then it wasn't like she was like cute impressed. I felt like she was judgy of him when he was.
Yeah, I think so too.
I was like, come on, he's trying, you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to have some fun. And so really, I felt like one of the things that she obviously needed to work on was being judgmental, because she's just so concerned about everything fitting in a certain way and being perfect, that it's no way that anything would ever succeed.
Yeah. And well, so Eric proposes and she doesn't say yes. And so that should have been a big hint. And, Fred finds out, and, he's kind of judgmental, and, she says basically like, it's a big deal. It's a big decision to get married. And so, there's sort of this back and forth, and, And that's when Fred finds her list. And so
she drops her purse on the floor and it falls out, which is the number one rule of not printing off the list and putting it in places that you take in public.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, luckily now you could just have it on your Google spreadsheet. So you'd be on your phone. So I'd be set.
It's in the cloud.
But yeah, so he says, what kind of person makes a list? And she says, someone who's tired of dating the wrong men.
Can I talk about how irritated I was that he went to her house to get mad at her?
Yeah.
I thought it was a little aggressive.
It was aggressive, for sure.
I was like, yeah, I didn't care for it at all.
Yeah. Especially, had they been to her house?
No.
I can't remember.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like they hadn't. Yeah. I mean, he was pretty aggressive as a character in general. Like, he's sort of painted as this free spirit, but like I said, in kind of an aggressive way. Like, he makes... Like a true free spirit.
It's still his way.
A true free spirit is like, dude, do what you want. Let's chill. That's like a true. That's like
yeah, it was kind of like he was right.
Yeah.
Although, like, if I found that list, I'd be mad too. But at the same time, is there a reason at that point for him to be mad at her about it? Because he's obviously knows that she's been seeing Eric, but they're are friendly, which I was also like, well, when you're dating, are you also looking for friendships or are you looking for relationships at work? And so I thought some of the lines were blurred there. Yeah. I was like, typically if you're looking for a partner, you're not creating friendships. So it could have been something that was a mixed message.
Yeah.
And that he liked her and she liked him too. And he got mad about it because the thing about it is, he's mad about it specifically because he doesn't match anything on that list.
Right.
And in a way, it's like, it is super judgmental of her to make that list, but
I wouldn't say it. I don't think it's actually like making the list. I don't think it's judgmental because but I think that I think the problem with the list is that she has the one out and you're out thing.
Yeah.
Out of the running.
Like she's using it to judge people, and she used it to judge him because she's like, so you want to be a barista for the rest of your life? What do your parents think about that?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the list again is reflection, but rule number 1, don't print it out and put it in your purse. No.
And Eric, she tells Eric about the list, and he's just like, oh, that's cute. That's cute that you did that. Okay.
They're perfect.
And so then she finds out from her boss that her sketches are too simple, and so then she says that and then Fred says, you made the list to keep the right guys away, to make it impossible for anyone to measure up.
Yep.
And obviously that is true because her list is so long. And she says, well, Eric measures up. You're jumping in to marry him, I see. You don't jump into marriage. It's a big decision. He says, you are just like your drawings, all safe and tidy and totally unwilling to take even the slightest risk.
Right on.
So, yes, I mean, that I think it's a little mean, but with her drawings,
delivery matters too. Yeah, you don't have to drag her and her drawings.
Yeah, it's a little mean, but yeah, I mean, it is important to take risks, but it's also important to take calculated risks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for instance, I don't know, go drive off a cliff. That's a risk, but it's not a calculated risk. Like, that's a stupid choice.
I think that's different than a risk because there's no possibility of good news there.
Right. Yeah. But I could I don't know, try to join a hiking group or something, or meet new people or something like start a podcast. That's a risk.
Quitting my job and starting a new one.
Yeah, there you go.
Completely different field.
That's a good one.
That's a huge risk.
That's a huge risk.
Let's not drive off any cliffs.
But it is
literally.
It's a calculated risk because I feel like most people, when they do something like that, they have some kind of plan or some kind of, fallback, or they're not just kind of
Some people do. They just walk out.
Yeah. And I like my big, everybody who listens to the podcast knows one of the big moments of my life was when I quit my job when I was 27. It was miserable. And I finally had the guts to quit my job, and I didn't have anything to go back to fall.
See, that's a risk.
Yeah. I didn't have anything to fall back on, but I was just so sure. Like, I knew that that's what God wanted me to do. Like, for sure. And so like I had that kind of confidence, but I also had like, I was going to school. I had family support. I had things. So I don't know. I feel like calculated risks, take calculated risks, go out of your comfort zone. I think that's really important. I've had so many great experiences in my life from being willing to go out of my comfort zone. In fact, I was just talking with a friend of mine who I was just talking with a friend of mine who has a podcast, and she's very hesitant to like ask for interviews or invite guests. And she's like, I don't know how you do that. I'm like, people love it. People love coming on. People love being asked. And if they don't, okay, no problem. Thanks for considering it. Appreciate it. No problem. But for her, it was really that would be a risk. And anyway, and so I think I don't know. I'm not a spontaneous person. I'm not somebody.
I mean, I'm not either. I think what we see in this movie though is that she is so rigid in her ways of how she lives her life, and how she then makes this list, and then how she uses it to measure people up, right? Yeah. But on the other side, like Fred is the other extreme, right? Like maybe taking too many risks and that sort of thing. And in some way you see them together, they might complement each other. Right?
So it's an interesting thing. And so she ends up saying they make a Eric versus Fred list.
That always goes over well too.
Yeah.
Let's leave that up on the dry erase board and invite them over so they can see it too.
And she says yes to Eric, and she changes her closet into a getting married closet. And then Fred enters the competition.
The barista competition.
And she comes in and he gives her the half calf drink, like super rude. And
she's back to her original uncool self as he sees it.
It's the old drink for the old you. And she says, you're just bitter.
Bitter like your coffee.
That's right. And so Eric wants to move up the wedding, which is always a death nail in these Hallmark movies. You never move up the wedding. And so then they're planning the wedding, and they're meeting with they start out small and it gets bigger and bigger and all these different things. And they meet with the wedding planner, and she basically has a full-blown panic attack.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't call it that. They were like, it's because of stress. I want to be like, doctor, she had a panic attack. Why don't you say that? They're like careful not to use those words or something. It was strange.
Must have been a 2010
I was like, she had a straight up panic attack, and her soon-to-be husband should know that because he's a doctor.
Right. Must have been maybe it was a 2010 thing that.
Like, not naming it.
I don't know, but
just being stress related.
And they don't treat. That's where Eric's his sort of fatal flaw is. He does not treat that with the importance that situation obviously warranted.
Yes.
It was just very like brushed off. And so that was his fatal flaw. And so she starts to draw a picture of the dog, and she's putting more flair into it, I guess.
Yeah.
And then she tells Fred that she had the panic attack, and she says, you make people happy and it makes you happy, and $10K, you should do it. And so he does it, and she shows the boss the new sketches, and so they go to this wedding as sort of a sample of what their wedding could be like, and that's pretty common.
To get ideas.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common in weddings, actually. And
I love that show, 4 Weddings. Is that what it is? Where it's like where people, they all go to each other's weddings.
I like I kind of like it, but I also feel bad that that anyone would feel like their wedding lost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. I used to watch it on Friday nights when I lived in New York. It was a tradition, and I was always like, ooh, you could do that at your wedding. Well, like, what was the food look like here? What's going on? What do you got? No, that's not gonna work for me.
Yeah.
Those appetizers, no way.
Right. Well, the thing you learn from 4 weddings is always have mashed potatoes at your wedding. That's
yum.
what I learned. And steak, don't have steak. Nobody likes steak. Like everybody
has mashed potato bar where we can put stuff on it, bacon and cheese and
everybody likes their steak different. It's just too hard.
Yeah.
No steak, mashed potato bar.
Can I tell you, just as one quick aside, my friend Amanda and Mark, their wedding, they had a macaroni and cheese bar as the appetizer going in. And then I got in there and I had a whole meal come, and I was like, I ate like 4 things of macaroni and cheese while y'all did photos. And then I'm supposed to eat this chicken and mashed potatoes and veggies, and then there's cake. It was amazing.
Here's the thing about Utah weddings.
Yeah.
Because people have big families here in Utah, a lot of people. And so they can be very, very skimpy with the wedding stuff. And which is fine. If you have a small wedding, no problem with that. But yeah, you rarely get like a full meal at a wedding in Utah. And so when we went, a lot of times it's just cake at Utah wedding, which and so my cousin Danielle, her wedding, she had the most amazing wedding. She had a whole pie station and then a whole slider station.
Yes.
It was so delicious. And
everyone step up their food wedding game and then invite me and Rachel so that we can taste test. And I apologize. That was Tara and Jason's wedding. It was in Vegas. Should have known the macaroni and cheese bar was going to be in Vegas. Oh my gosh, I want so many invites now, or pictures of food from weddings. Please, I want it all. Yum. Maybe I can pick up 7 of my recipes from your wedding food.
Yes, that's right. My friend, I've only ever been in two sort of fancy weddings. I was in my sister's wedding, and we did have yummy food at my sister's wedding. We made it, most like 90% we made it. And nice. It was delicious. And then my best friend from high school, she got married. This was way back in like 2000. Still together. Amazing. High school sweethearts. I know. And anyway, I was a bridesmaid at her wedding, and she had Indian food at her wedding.
Yum!
It was the biggest hit.
Oh my God. Like, I want some naan bread. I want some potato dishes. There's so many things I want right now.
And I mean, in 2000, I had never had any food
so
like
good.
That. It was so good. So that was a big, big, big hit. I still remember it to this day. But anyway.
Now I'm hungry.
I know. So at this sample wedding that they go to.
I forgot what we were talking about.
And there was unexpected love. They say their vows, and I think they expected you to go a long way in the fact that the bride was taller than the groom.
Hey, my mom's taller than my dad.
But I felt like I never expected to fall in love with you. And I just felt like the big thing was like, oh, she's taller. Therefore, that's why she was so small.
Yeah, it could have been a little bit more like, subtle.
Right.
But I do think that it's like typically people might say, I'll only marry someone who's at least 6 feet tall or something like that. And it's like, when you put all that sort of stuff on the side and focus on what's important, you might find the person that you complete each other, it ends up being a good partnership.
Yeah. And because you don't want to marry yourself, you want to marry somebody
that's the problem with Eric.
Yeah. And so she goes and breaks up with Eric.
Yeah, bye.
I thought a nice scene, between the two of them. And he does say the one thing that was never on your list was love.
She got him, or he got her.
Yeah,
she said it. I was like, yeah, it's right. There's anything on there about being in love with someone. And that might be maybe the number one thing we need to put on our list.
I think so. And so then she goes to the barista competition, and he sees her, and he makes all of the drinks that he had made for her in these specialty competition.
Yeah.
And we also got more of our fancy split screen in the
Love
competition.
The split screen. It's like in Star Wars when you have like the white animations.
That's right.
It's so good.
And so he says that he knew he didn't have a chance with this girl, but he could get her the right cup of coffee. And then she says, well, the truth is, he says, what about Mr. Perfect? And she says, well, what I wanted was Mr. Imperfect. And the new list is must love the guy more than anything in the world. So, ta-da!
And if there's only one item on it, is it actually a list?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
See, mine is a list. Mine is sense of humor, but I guess I should have two items. Love and sense of humor as a preference.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have quite a few things on my list. I mean, I definitely have a religion. I really would rather marry somebody of my religion.
Absolutely.
I really don't want to live in a small town. Yep. I really want somebody who's supportive of my podcasting.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Get on board. I have 2 cats, a dog, 3 podcasts. Let's go. The train is leaving the station. Choo choo. Get on board.
Everything else, those are the big things. I feel like everything else, I could probably work around. Obviously, and somebody who's going to treat me well, and isn't going to beat up on me and stuff. Of course,
and that's
goes
the thing.
Without saying.
It's the idea of the feeling that you have with the person, and not that all these things are tangible, like honesty or those sorts of things, but we don't think about it's how we feel about ourselves and about the relationship when we're with the person that makes the most difference. And that I think there are some things that are deal breakers for people. Like, I think faith is one of the main ones. I think whether or not people want to have children is another main one. For some people, it might be politics, especially in 2020.
Right.
Like, those things might really make a difference, right? But it is about the feeling that you have. And I think what's interesting was that somehow Sarah in this movie uses the list as a way to close herself off. And that's what Fred brings up in saying that you've created this list and it's impossible for you to find a relationship. So in some way, she was, although wanted a relationship so badly, seemed unwilling to make a commitment and finding a way to sort of sabotage herself.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, that's the thing. I think what you can learn from it is, let's reflect on it, know who we are, how we feel in a relationship. That love should, if you're making a list, love should be on it.
Yeah.
And that someone who might not be exactly the same as us still might be someone who could be that person who treats us the best, or we have that loving relationship with. Mm-hmm. But I also think that it's important to point out a couple things. Mm-hmm. 2 things I've already mentioned on the podcast before, I believe. Number 1, there's a tree theory, and the tree theory is you want to have similar trunks with your partner, the things that are rooted into the ground that are most important, like faith, for example. And then the branches, which are not as strong as the trunk of a tree, things that can break off, leaves can grow, fall off, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you like to do. Watch, I mentioned baseball before, or you love musicals. When your partner doesn't, that doesn't matter. Right? The branches, that stuff doesn't matter. It's the things that are most critical to people. And I know I've mentioned that before, so I just want to bring it back up.
Yeah.
The second one is, I think on the last episode, I talked about love styles and how people love in different ways. And one of them is called pragmatic, which is like the practical way of love. And that is when people make lists. So she might just be very practical about going, it's almost like a business deal. And I think when you approach things like a business deal, then you lose the love. But I understand that there are a lot of reasons why people want to be or should be practical in finding a partner.
So
right?
The true happy ending to this movie would be her getting the book deal with her boss, moving to New York, and becoming becoming super successful. And
bye, everybody. I'm out. I'm super
and then
successful.
falling in love with somebody completely different who's
neither one of these jokers.
Neither one of these schmucks, and then having a great happy life.
Yeah,
so that's our alternate ending.
I swear they should really take us on. We got ideas for this stuff, for amendments. They should, Hallmark, you should be listening to this. We can help you.
I think so.
And we have maybe a little bit of extra time over the next month.
That's right.
If you want us to help with anything.
Yeah.
bestforeverspod@gmail.com. What's Hallmarkies? Say it, Rachel.
Hallmarkies podcast. At gmail.com.
We got your back.
We're ready to go. So yeah, I would probably in the end give this movie, I'll probably give it 3 out of 5 rounds.
I would agree with that. I enjoyed it, but I also, it's one of those things where like, when you like some stuff, but then you're also sort of like screaming at the television, like, what are you doing? It's one of those. So if you have some pent up energy or anger that you need to release, but also have some enjoyment in your life, this is the perfect movie for you.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, very good. Well, let us know if you guys have seen this movie. Let us know what you think and what you think of the different things that we've talked about. We'd love your thoughts. Are you a list maker? We want to hear your thoughts about that. It'd be a lot of fun. And let us know how you're doing with all of this.
Let us know about your 7 recipes.
Yes.
We want to see pictures of wedding food.
Yes.
Or we want to be invited to weddings so we can taste said wedding food. Thank you.
So it'll be great. Let us know. And Alysa, where can people find you?
Yes, I am all over the internet. bestforeverspod at gmail.com is the email. But you can also find me on Best Forever's Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And Best Forever's Pod can be found on all your favorite podcatchers and via my webpage, alysalucas.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So make sure to check that out. And make sure you're following the podcast, the Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media and on iTunes and YouTube. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate it. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, and we are so, so grateful for anybody who is willing to sponsor us as patron. Thank you so much. All that information in the description section. We also have our merch store with all kinds of fun stuff. So check that all out. And thanks again, Alysa. This is really fun. This was very, I feel less stress. I do. I really do. So hope you all do too, listening.
Yeah, I feel like also that you can go to that merch store and get one of those slogan shirts that lady didn't want on her list.
That's right.
And that maybe someone out there is like, I want to partner with a Hallmarkies podcast slogan shirt, and they'll check the box off. So you want to get up in there.
Yes, very, very good. Very good. All
and
right.
Always be well, everyone. Be well.
Yes,
be well.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.